Hello. A very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Bukku's E-Invoice Webinar 2.0. I'm your host today Jay. So today's webinar is actually organized by Bukku and it's fully supported by ST Partners, one of the leading accounting firms in Klang Valley. And as well as I should be also mentioning that we also have a esteemed guest from ST Partners joining us today, and he also will be joining us like the second half lah. So we'll actually be running an expert panel. So just stay tuned for that. Okay, so today's going to be a very interesting session. First thing first, just to do a bit of self-introduction, in case you do know, you haven't met me before. All right, I'm Jay. Okay, I co-founded Bukku Accounting, which is currently the fastest growing accounting software in Malaysia. And I have roughly 10 years experience in accounting software space lah. Okay, about 17 years experience in enterprise software solution as well. I was involved in designing GST system specifically for Malaysia and Singapore, as well as the SST system in Malaysia. Okay, so that was just a bit about myself. And together with me today, we have Mr. Ching, like coming all the way from ST Partners. Like he took them about like half an hour trip to actually get here, and he's actually in our office already, and he'll be joining me later. He actually is a member of MIA. Okay, also a member of Chartered Tax Institute of Malaysia, as well as a fellow of SCCA. Okay, so about 30 years experience. It's definitely a senior, okay, very experienced figure in the industry. So again, he will be joining us for the expert panel today. What to expect today, all right? This is going to be a slightly about 1.5 hour session today. First half is going to be 45 minutes sharing on e-invoicing, and I personally will be the one doing the sharing. So I'm the host today because, so that's what I'll be doing. And then we'll be taking a short break, about 5 minutes break. And after the break, we'll come back with our guest today, Mr. Ching, joining us with the expert panel. So basically, you can get ready with your questions already. Okay, you can start putting in your questions in the comment box as soon as possible. All right. And today's sharing is actually mainly based on the latest guideline. In case you don't already know, they actually published the latest version just the day before Chinese New Year, all together with the SDK finally. That was actually delayed for 2 months. Okay, so all these are published like just before Chinese New Year. So everything today I will be based on these documents. So whatever that I'm going to highlight a few, whatever that you will see bold, right? Like the stronger color, that is actually something new. Okay, later I will highlight. So whatever that they actually introduced in addition to last time version, I will also mention that specifically. Okay, and don't worry, today's video, okay, we will publish on our YouTube and Facebook afterwards, and the slides will also be shared with all of you through email in a few days' time. All right, okay, let's get into the topic, the impact of E-Invoice. Okay, so the impact, we're talking about everyone in Malaysia. Okay, almost all legal entities, as well as individuals in Malaysia, need to comply. What do I mean by comply? Later, I'll actually explain what's the meaning of comply here. Okay, so the impact of E-Invoice that we are talking about today actually goes beyond the GST implementation era. If you can recall, that was like about close to 10 years already. Okay, but what's the difference? Right now, we are not talking about any revenue threshold like last time. Okay, even you are earning 100 ringgit, 1 cent, you will need to comply as a business. And second point is, no industry is actually exempted, not like last time. Okay, perhaps there are some certain industry you do not have to actually comply. You don't even need to register as a GST. Okay, but no such thing as register anymore. So it's basically everyone automatically registered. So that is what we talk about today for that E-Invoice. And the third point is individuals, taxpayers, they also will need to comply. What do I mean by that? Okay, in the future, you will need to request for E-Invoice to actually prove your expense, right? Remember, every April of every year, you actually have to submit your personal tax, right? So moving forward, after the implementation of E-Invoice, you will actually need to use the E-Invoice to prove. You can no longer use the last time old school receipts, whether it's a printed one or it's a digital copy, PDF or whatever, you can't use it anymore. Okay, so that is the kind of impact that we are talking about. And what about who needs to actually issue invoice? Okay, all taxpayers undertaking commercial activities. Of course, first thing coming into our mind, businesses. All businesses, as I mentioned just now, all industry gonna. Okay, all industry will have to issue e-invoice, regardless you are just on roadside selling Ramly Burger, Pasar Malam, anyone. Basically, you have to actually comply lah. Okay, and second point, including certain individuals. What I meant by that is if you are actually running some commercial activities. So by that, I actually mean you actually have to register lah. So whether you are registered or not, that is a totally different story that we don't talk about. But if you're running any activities, business activities, so most likely you have to register a business entity. Then with that, you have to comply and actually issue e-invoice lah, okay? There are some exempted parties, and it's a very short list, as you can see here. Other than that, everyone, like I said just now, you have to comply lah. First, rulers and all the related parties. Second, government and related. Local authority, statutory authority. And lastly, as you can see, this is actually highlighted. So meaning to say, they actually added this line specifically. So just for clarity, they explicitly mention individuals who is not conducting businesses doesn't need to actually issue e-invoice at all. Okay. Activities exempted from e-invoice. There are certain activities that they actually listed explicitly that you do not need to issue e-invoice for that. Okay. First, employment income. What you will get as an employee, you will get a salary slip. Continue to be the case. Right? There's no need for anyone, whether it's you yourself or the employer issuing e-invoice. No such thing. Right? You can continue to do exactly the same thing lah. Pension, okay, basically for your retirement. This one also not needed lah. Alimony, which is like the financial support during or after the divorce, that one also is excluded. Distribution of the dividend in specific circumstances. So whether you are holding a bit of share of certain companies, so that is also excluded lah. Zakat, all right, this is for Muslim lah. Scholarships, so all these are exempted. Okay, quite a short list as you can see here. Everything else, as I mentioned, you have to comply. When is e-invoice needed? When is e-invoice needed? I only have 2 points here. Okay, one, when you need to prove your income as a business. If you're conducting any business activities, you somehow have to prove your income to LHDN. Right? Forget about the old way. We're talking about moving forward. E-invoice. You need an e-invoice to actually prove your income. Okay, that is number one. And number second, not just businesses, even individuals as well. Like I mentioned just now, every year you need to do something around April, which is the tax submission. You need the e-invoice to prove your expenses. Okay, you want to actually enjoy some kind of a tax deduction, then you need to have the proper documents lah. And the moving forward, proper documents is not any random receipts anymore, but the proper e-invoice captured into LHDN systems. All right, there are a few document types that you actually need to have all these capture into the system. Okay, it's invoices, credit notes, debit notes, and refund notes. Just very quickly, invoices, I think all of you can understand. If you are making sales, then you issue invoices. Credit note and debit note is basically adjustment to the original invoice. Let's say you are making changes to the original invoice. It's not like last time you can anyhow, suka-suka, you just want to change the invoice, you can change, right? Moving forward, you have to do it properly. Anything submitted to LHDN is considered final. right? You want to make changes, you have to attach, you have to resubmit with additional documents. And in this case, we're talking about credit note and debit note. Okay, and the last one, refund is actually used when you are actually having some cancelled services, return of goods that's already paid. You have paid already that you want to actually refund the money, then you can actually issue a refund note in the e-invoice system lah. Okay, this is also another very important point in case you don't already know. All right, I believe a lot of you have actually came across this lah, but let me just quickly go through. And you see, I actually highlighted one point. And because I believe most of you are SMEs, there might be some of you earning more than 1 million and beyond, but that would be the minority lah. For most of you, it's basically falling under the all taxpayer rule, which is starting 1st of July 2025. Okay, for the first batch, so we call it like the first batch lah, to actually trial and test everything for us. Anyone making annual income more than 100 million and beyond is really starting soon. Okay, 1st of August this year, right? Not next year, but this year, which is like happening in like 5 months time. Okay, and if you're making 25 million and beyond, of course, you also have to start a bit earlier than all the other SMEs lah, okay, which is 1st of January 2025. So how is that revenue determined, right? Is it last year, this year, right? There has to be a rule, okay, and LHDN clearly states that it's going to be based on your financial year 2022, which is already concluded. Definitely, I think you have already concluded your financial year, okay? If you are an entity without audited reports, you don't even have the financial year, then alternative is you can refer to the tax return lah, okay? So any individuals would have the tax return. And if you are having a change of financial year end, let's say just nice, you are during the year of 2022, you are adjusting your financial year and it became like 18 months. So they have also stated, just do a proration, okay? 18 months, you just divide by 18 months, multiply by 12, then you will get that amount. And if that amount is more than 25 million, let's say, then you have to start enforcing e-invoice starting next year lah, okay? So that is going to be the timeline for everyone. Okay, how about new businesses? All right, if you have just started businesses not long ago, like 2023 January, okay, you definitely do not have a financial year 2022, and in that case, it will be zero. And if that is the case, LHDN also stated clearly, you will start with all the other SMEs, okay, which is the last batch lah. Also coming soon, like about 1 year plus from now. During the first line to the last line from the previous slides, we talk about 1st of August 2024, which is this year until mid of next year. During this period, LHDN term it as transition period. Okay, during this transition period, taxpayer, right, any taxpayer may still receive normal receipts. This is accepted. Okay, provided if the supplier has yet to implement the e-invoice. So next slide, I'm going to explain a bit further. Okay, of course, if you feel like that you want to volunteer, okay, even you're not making 100 million, you want to start, you want to be ahead of everyone, you can of course volunteer yourself lah. Okay. Okay, just to give you some illustration, because we receive this question like almost on a daily basis, like what to do when one party has started, but the other one has yet to start actually enforcing e-invoice. Give you a scenario, all right? Like imagine in the near future, 15th of February, which is still during that transition period. And this is like almost just after the second line that, if you can recall, right? 1st of January 2025. Anyone making 25 million and beyond, they have to start complying to e-invoice. In this case, we have a supplier not implemented e-invoice because their annual turnover is way less than 25. Obviously, it's actually stated here 5 million. But buyer, in this case, a business, has already implemented E-Invoice because their annual turnover is just beyond 25 million. Okay, in this case 30 million. So in this case, supplier is not E-Invoice ready, but buyer is ready. So what do we do for this case? Supplier will not be able to supply E-Invoice, obviously, because their system is not ready and they are, technically speaking, not registered, although automatically. In this case, they cannot supply E-Invoice. And for this, buyer can continue to prove their expenses with normal receipts. So the rule is simple. Always just look at the supplier. Okay, the one supplying you goods or services, whether they are already implemented E-Invoice or not, then you can expect whether you will get E-Invoice or not lah. That is actually going to be the case. Let's talk about E-Invoice submission mechanisms. So we actually have two. Okay, the first one is actually what we call API. Okay, in other words, it's actually connected through accounting software or point of sale system. Okay, for any SMEs that currently like having any proper accounting software, right? Which is the first scenario that we talk about here. Okay, they can actually issue E-Invoice invoices. All right, so let's just talk about E-Invoices first. They can issue invoices just like normally. Okay, and if in the future it's going to be connected with LHDN through API. Okay, so that LHDN has provided the API for the software vendor to actually integrate, and from there you can basically validate your E-Invoice from software instead of you going into another platform, okay, to actually do that. Right? If you have a software readily supporting the LHDN thing, then you can expect things to be done in your existing software lah. For a much larger scale businesses with perhaps in-house software engineers or even programmers, so perhaps they have their own system, and in this case they can actually build or enhance their existing accounting software or even ERP system to connect to LHDN. So because the idea is the API provided by LHDN is actually open to public. It's not just open to the software vendor. So anyone, right? If you have the resources, you can basically go and build the integration yourself lah. So that was what I mentioned just now is actually the first mechanism. Second, I think a lot of you have actually heard about this. LHDN understand that not everyone can afford, or perhaps some of you might not even have a proper accounting software yet, and perhaps you are not ready to pay for something else. Whatever that you have used to do, you are not ready to actually change the workflow. Okay, so for that, LHDN has actually provided a platform called MyInvoice portal, and that is actually provided free of charge. Okay, so it's actually the whole thing is built by LHDN for all the small or micro businesses out there, in case they do not have any software, any proper software lah. But personally, I wouldn't be recommending MyInvoice to any one of you lah, because it actually requires double work, which is something that I will be talking a bit more in the next few slides lah. Okay, in getting ready for the E-Invoice submission, which is happening as soon as like in 5 months' time. All right, one of the most important thing that you need to be aware, you need to get ready with is the TIN number, which stands for Tax Identification Number. And that is actually a unique number assigned to any taxpayer. If you have paid tax before, most likely you have the number. Otherwise, you just have to go and register lah. Okay, so you can actually refer to there should be a My Tax portal for you to actually register. Okay, and this thing is also known as, previously they have different terms. So I think moving forward, they're going to standardize it and just call it TIN number lah. But before this, it was called income tax number, or in Malay, it's actually Nombor Cukai Pendapatan. Okay, so that the number is actually the one starting with SG and OG lah. Okay, so then you know what I'm talking about. Let me just quickly explain the going to be workflow. How are you going to submit E-Invoice? Very straightforward. I have actually listed down all one by one. Talking about first, the LHDN provided MyInvoice portal, right? Because this is for everyone. So I think by right we should just start talking about it. First, in terms of issuing E-Invoice in the future, right? You as a supplier, you just have to go into the portal, login lah. Okay, usually it's login through using username and password. Log into that platform, go and create the E-Invoice. All right. Once you hit the submission button, it will actually send the whole thing to LHDN's server, right, for LHDN to perform validation. If everything is good, like there's nothing missing, there's nothing fishy, most likely you can expect almost immediate response telling you that, which is the third line, supplier will be receiving a validated E-Invoice in PDF format. Okay, the system is going to provide the whole thing as a PDF format together with all the things for validations, like including unique ID, potentially a QR code and some signature. Okay, so that's what we are aware. And following that, LHDN will also notify supplier and buyer at the same time that E-Invoice and a new E-Invoice has been validated. Just a notification, nothing else. Right? LHDN, they have your email address as a supplier. They also have your buyer's email address, which is provided by you. Okay, you have to provide in that system, and for them to actually send out the notification. And what comes after that is LHDN stated clearly that as a supplier, you need to share the validated E-Invoice, which can be the most likely the PDF given by LHDN's MyInvoice portal. Okay, you share that document with the buyer with all the validation information. Okay, so that is the issuance of E-Invoice, straightforward. The next one is, we're talking about someone rejecting the E-Invoice. In this case, the recipient of the one that you actually send invoice to. You are the supplier, you send to buyer, and now buyer found something fishy, example, wrong item, or perhaps the wrong, you key in the wrong business information. So they have the right to actually reject. Or perhaps, not, I shouldn't call it reject. It's actually just a request to reject, and as what you can actually see from the slide there. Okay, you cannot, as a buyer, if you are a buyer, you cannot directly reject an E-Invoice, unfortunately. Okay, that is the case, okay, dictated in the system, in the guideline. But what you can do as a buyer, you request for rejection, okay, and you have to do it within like 72 hours from the point that you actually validated that document. You have to state the reason clearly. Okay, so as a buyer, that's what you do, and then LHDN will, on your behalf, send a notification through the system to the supplier. And from there, right, so this is the case I'm actually listing here, the case that the request eventually accepted by supplier. So whatever that you stated, wrong item or whatnot, it's actually agreed by the buyer, by the supplier. Then they can cancel within that 72 hours. Bear in mind, if you are already past 71 hours, imagine you were to request to reject, meaning to say the supplier only has 1 hour to reject, to actually accept the reject. So you have to be very careful playing around with the timing. Okay, so that is something going to be very tricky. So once the supplier acknowledge that they actually accepted the cancel, so the whole thing will actually be cancelled. Okay, then you can, as a supplier, you actually issue the invoice again. Okay, so when the whole thing is concluded, notification will be sent to the buyer, okay, telling them that the e-invoice has been cancelled successfully. So again, this is when the supplier accept the rejection. What about the other way around? Okay, the buyer, same thing, request to reject, but eventually rejected by the supplier. Okay, same thing. You see the first line, second line, sending a notification. Third line is where things become different. Right? Supplier reject the request, or they don't even have to do anything. You see, as long as that doesn't actually cancel the e-invoice within the 72 hours, the whole thing will automatically revert back to valid. Okay, so that is going to be the case. Okay, if the supplier say no, I reject the rejection, okay, or I just simply leave it there, it will end up being a valid invoice again. So this is something that you might need to pay attention to moving forward as a buyer, especially. Okay. Supplier, you as a supplier, you can definitely cancel, right? If you found something wrong, you can cancel, but the same rule applies. You still have to cancel within 72 hours, of course, stating the reason lah. So for that, it's more straightforward. The whole thing will get cancelled immediately, okay? And you get a notification sent out to the buyer immediately. So that is when the supplier cancel the e-invoice lah. Okay, so that all are under the MyInvoice portal. What about any accounting software? Just to give you an example, of course, in this example, I'm going to share from a Bukku accounting's perspective lah. Okay, and the Peppol network that highlighted here, I will explain later. Okay, there will be one slide specifically. This is something, it's new information if you actually attended our webinar before. Okay, we didn't mention that, so now we actually added this information. So later I will talk a bit about it. But let's say you are using any proper accounting software moving forward, and the whole thing, the whole workflow is going to be like this. As a supplier, you just go and create your invoice in Bukku accounting or any accounting software lah. Okay, it should all be working about the same. And the accounting software is like responsible to actually, on your behalf, go and validate the e-invoice behind the scene. You don't even have to actually do anything like go and log into a different system. No, it will just happen, right? As long as it's connected, everything is keyed in properly, Bukku or any accounting software will do the validation for you, and you'll receive the unique ID, all the validation things in real time, almost real time. That is on the supplier side. What about the buyer, right? The one buying stuff from you, in this case, let's assume the buyer is also another business, all right? That business might have an accounting software. Doesn't have to be a Bukku to Bukku. It can be Bukku to any other accounting software, whether it's offline, whether it's a cloud-based or whether it's a more traditional install-based software. As long as they're connected to internet, they're connected to LHDN server, they can receive the e-invoice, regardless of what software. That is going to be the case if the buyer, as a business, is having any accounting software lah. But what if the buyer doesn't even are not even using any software? In that case, they will likely be receiving that whole thing through the MyInvoice portal, which is the purpose of that thing lah. That is actually considered a fallback. If nothing works out, right, you will still get something through the MyInvoice portal and perhaps a notification through email. All right, that is the workflow to issue an e-invoice. Straightforward. It's very straightforward. It's much easier. Okay, just in case you're curious, right? People ask about, hey, show me the prototype lah. Okay, I'm so kanchiong, I'm so curious about what is going to be happening. Right? It's coming soon. Everyone is so nervous, counting down. So we have actually started working on it, and this is actually one of the prototype that we have come up with. So of course, this is actually the recipient side, meaning to say you as a supplier, you send out an invoice, and this is the buyer receiving it in their accounting software. In this case, they're just nice using Bukku, they will get a notification. So what does it mean? Okay, it actually helps you as a buyer to streamline your business process. We're talking about digitalization, which is the whole idea behind the Peppol network, which is later I'll talk about. But the idea is you no longer have to do a data entry as a recipient. Okay, everything goes into your payable, your purchases. Everything is keyed in properly. There's no need for you to key in anymore. Okay, so that is the benefit of getting it connected through all the e-invoice frameworks lah. Okay. Now let's talk about the buyer information to be obtained by supplier. When you are actually you want to make a deal with the buyer, there are certain things that you want to actually obtain if you want to issue e-invoice or they're requested for e-invoice. First thing first, full name, TIN number. Okay, TIN number, you have to be very careful. We're talking about not just TIN number, also registration number, identification number. So it's listed out very clearly. For any Malaysians, you can supply TIN number or request for TIN number lah. Let's say you're the suppliers, from a supplier perspective, you go and request for TIN number or my card, either one, right? If you get both, even better, but one is good enough. For non-Malaysians, you get a TIN number. All right. Actually, you do not get a TIN number from the foreigners. They know nothing about the e-invoice. So this is a generic TIN number that you can get from all the LHDN guideline or even from us. So it's generic. All the foreigners, you're going to use the same number and their passport number. This is what you have to request from the foreigner. For any businesses, okay, it is going to be TIN number. Okay, but for foreign businesses, same thing, a generic TIN number will be provided for you, also coming from LHDN lah. Addresses, okay, so you need to provide the address, the contact number, mobile phone, or even their office number, email address. This is needed for the system to actually send notification. SST registration number, where applicable, if the buyer is actually SST registered lah, otherwise no need. Okay, when a buyer doesn't need an invoice, all right, just now I think we did mention that it's for all except your rulers, your king, your sultans, right? So it's for all serious, but there are certain circumstances where a buyer might not need an e-invoice, right? Because the whole idea, let me recap, the whole idea for e-invoice is to prove your income, is to prove your expenses. What about we're talking about dealing with a consumer that doesn't care about what they're buying? It's just something random. Then there's no need for you to actually issue e-invoice lah. If that's the case, like if that's the case, example lah, you're dealing with retail consumers, continue to do exactly the same as what you're doing today. No changes at all, almost, at least at the point of time, all right? But as a business owner running that shop, whether it's 99 Speed Mart or a very tiny little shop somewhere on the street, you have to issue an e-invoice. It's a different kind of e-invoice called Consolidated E-Invoice. You do not need to issue one by one because on the spot, like I said just now, it's going to be normal receipts. Right? You're dealing with so many clients throughout the day. You can't be issuing so many e-invoice and they don't need it. The whole point is they do not need the e-invoice. So if they do not need it, then you consolidate everything together. Best is to actually get help from or actually use any established system lah. I can't think of how you can actually consolidate yourself. You definitely need to use a proper software, whether it's an accounting software or point of sale system. Within 7 days after the month is concluded, you have to compile everything, all right, and then submit the whole thing. All right, you have 1,000 transactions. You just compile everything together. That thing is called Consolidated E-Invoice. Submit to LHDN within 7 days. All right. So self-built e-invoice cannot be consolidated. Don't worry, later we will be talking about self-built e-invoice. Right? We will try to make it layman so everyone can understand what is self-built e-invoice about. You cannot basically consolidate self-built e-invoice as a consolidated e-invoice lah. LHDN has stated very, very clearly you have 3 options. Right? When you're dealing with the consolidated e-invoice. Let's say that whole month you have 1,000 sales. Okay? You can separate as different line items. In this case, 1,000 lines. I can't think of how this is going to work, but this is one of the options. If you're not having a lot of sales, fine. Okay, 10 sales, 10 lines into one transaction, submit to LHDN. Supposed to be done by system. So this is approach number 1. Approach number 2 is you combine receipts. That 1,000, you just state clearly, later I got an example, invoice number 1 to 1,000. That as one line, submit as one single consolidated e-invoice to LHDN. And the third one is if you are dealing with multi-locations, right? You have different branches, one Johor, one KL, then you can consolidate. You can choose to consolidate by different locations. All right, so each of that locations, you can choose whether you want to go for the first one, which is broken down everything into different lines, or you can go for the second one. Okay, all of these are stated very clearly. It's up to you which one you want to actually go for. And this is the example coming from LHDN. As you can see, it's actually grouped by the transaction number. Okay, and you see it's not just one line because there are certain number missing, which is another point that I want to mention. Right? There are, in this case, our assumption that some invoices already voided. right? So it's voided, is no longer in the picture, or some of the transactions already converted into an actual e-invoice, which is what I'll be talking about in the coming slide lah. Okay. Activities that doesn't allow consolidated e-invoice. Let me just go about that. Automotive, you're buying cars, you're buying motorcycles, right? You have to, you cannot actually consolidate the e-invoice lah. You basically have to actually get the proper e-invoice. Aviation, okay, anything to do with aircraft. I'm not sure whether air ticket counts, but you cannot do consolidated if you are from that kind of industry. Luxury goods and jewelries, you can. Constructions, wholesaler and retailers of construction materials. Licensed betting and gaming. Payments to agents, dealers, and distributors. So this is like a bit of middleman. Any transaction that involve middleman, okay, it doesn't allow consolidated. Okay, so can I request for e-invoice later? Just now, back to the same example, I'm a retail customer. I go and visit your store. I never ask for e-invoice, but can I request for it? So the answer is yes. You can actually request for it, but within the same calendar month. Okay, be very careful. If you are on the last day of the month, then you are a bit running out of time. You have like a few more hours to actually do that. Okay, but if you are in the middle of the month, yes, you have another half a month to actually take your time to actually request for that lah. Okay, so the request is to be done where some kind of systems, portals, or applications, either provided by suppliers or technology providers. Example, accounting software, e-commerce platforms, or point-of-sale systems. So these are likely going to be the most common channels that you can actually, as a consumer or as a seller, okay, you'll be dealing with these systems to actually handle the request to convert the normal receipts into e-invoice later. But again, within the same month. Why is it within the same month? Because you have to conclude that consolidated, isn't it? Okay, so within the same month, then the next month, you have to compile the consolidated within 7 days. So that is why you have to actually do it as soon as possible lah. Just to share the upcoming sample normal invoices coming from accounting software, in this case, Bukku Accounting. Imagine you are issuing an invoice to a retail customer that doesn't care about e-invoice. They didn't request for e-invoice at all. So you just issued like normal, just like how you are doing it now in Bukku accounting system. So what will be included in the future is something like this. A QR code for you, for your customer. In case they want to convert to e-invoice later, just scan the QR, provide all the information to convert everything into e-invoice. Okay, so that is what going to be the case in the future. What is the impact for retail businesses? Right? We highlight a lot into retail businesses because it's actually quite a huge impact. Right? It's quite a huge impact that we identify. So LHDN actually stated, like in their example, that in case you are a retail line, coming from a retail line, and someone requested for e-invoice on the spot, you are supposed to give them the e-invoice. Before that, you have to request for all the information listed just now. Okay, just now the name, TIN number, everything. The assumption is LHDN assume that you can get it done in 60 seconds. So this is just my personal opinion. I think it's going to be a bit unpractical. Okay, we cannot confirm it's going to be done in 60 seconds. Who is going to be the one doing it? Is the operator, or is it going to be the customer keying in themselves? Okay, so it's going to be a very huge impact if you are already running a very busy business. Even 5% of your customers request for e-invoice will be a big deal for your operation. You will see people queuing up. So that is what we foresee will be happening if you follow bulat-bulat what is dictated by LHDN. You have to issue the e-invoice on the spot. Okay, of course, if you are Aeon, if you are 99 Speed Mart, I think you have the money to actually invest into the infrastructure, the whole system. You can even build a mobile apps to do whatever you want. But this is not going to be the case if you are smaller operators. You're running a very shop, a very small shop. You just started up, struggling. How are you going to stay compliant? That is a big question lah. So I have some personal tips here to give for all the retail businesses here. One is to get your customer to pre-fill their particulars before their visit. That's one. If that's even possible lah, okay? It might not work for everyone, but if that's possible, try that. Second one is, if people really on the spot request for E-Invoice, don't give them the E-Invoice. Give them a normal receipt. Tell them that you can actually go back and convert into E-Invoice. This will have minimal impact to your operations. But again, you see the bracket here, I can't be sure that this is allowed by LHDN, because LHDN states clearly that someone requests for E-Invoice, you have to give them. They never say you can choose not to give, but you have to play around with that lah. Or perhaps this is something that we need to clarify with LHDN also. Is it allowed that I reject their request and simply ask them to go and do it at home? So this is something that I think we need to clarify with LHDN lah. Okay, and this is something very serious that is actually going to be having a huge impact into your retail businesses lah. Okay, just a very quick case study. Do you need to bring your IC, TIN number, just for lunch? If you're having lunch at some random restaurant, first thing first, just simple. It's simple. You will get you can start seeing the pattern already. Do you need a receipt to be validated for tax purpose? You just have to ask yourself. If this is just a normal lunch for yourself, I don't think so. You do not need E-Invoice. So that's the case, just take the normal receipts lah. And people don't even bother with receipts. Some people just don't take the receipt at all. That continue to be the same. But if this is a different case, like you are actually paying for the company team gathering, okay? Someone is celebrating the birthday lah, to be billed to the company. So if that is the case, you want to submit as an expense claim, you will have to request for E-Invoice on the spot, following the guideline lah. Or alternatively, make sure you take the normal receipts that has the QR for you to convert. And following all the guidelines, that receipts, ideally, you don't put your name, you give the seller, the supplier, your company's name, which is going to be very interesting. You have to carry your company's TIN number. It's going to be very interesting. I don't know how that's going to work out, but later I'll explain more in details. But as a store owner, right, you are running that shop, you're running that store, a hawker center or whatever, you will have to issue consolidated E-Invoice for any normal receipts lah. Okay, let's say now no one requested for E-Invoice. 1,000 out of your 1,000 sales is going to be consolidated into one at the end of the month. But if some of the transactions, some of the orders eventually became a E-Invoice, right? The end of the day, consolidated E-Invoice needs to exclude the already E-Invoice, the generated E-Invoice. Right? If you get what I mean. Whatever converted wouldn't be in the eventual consolidated E-Invoice. Okay, that's what I would like to share about. Just now we talked about self-billed E-Invoice. Okay, first point to make here is E-Invoice is usually issued by supplier. It's usually issued by supplier. Okay, and what if that is not possible? I give you two examples, right? Very simple. You're buying something for foreigner. The foreigner doesn't have to comply with E-Invoice. They don't have a TIN number or this and that. So that is one of the scenario. And how about you buy a second-hand computer from your colleague, which is an individual, right? Yeah, the company buying from one of the guy lah. Right? He can't be issuing your E-Invoice also. If that is the case, right? You swap the role, right? The buyer going to be the one issuing E-Invoice. In that case, it's called self-billed E-Invoice. All right, it's just that. Okay, so that is exactly my point just now. But there are certain transactions that listed explicitly here that you can actually do a self-billed E-Invoice. Payment to agents is basically payment to anyone, middleman. Later we have example. Goods sold to, or services rendered by a foreign supplier. Just now we mentioned already. Profit distribution, e-commerce transactions. Later, we have a dedicated slide talking about e-commerce. All right, continue from there. Payout to all the betting and gaming winners. Acquisition of goods and services from individual taxpayer, like the second-hand computer example that I gave just now. Payment of credit to taxpayer recorded in statements, and interest payments. All right, so as interest payment is like you, someone charge you interest payment, perhaps a bank charge you for certain amount for your loan. All right, you can issue a self-bill e-invoice. So these two last points are actually added in the latest guideline. Okay, also very important, employees' benefits or claims. Employees, right? We're talking about what is actually benefits, like a club membership, professional membership that the company is paying for you. Okay, eventually you have to submit as claim. End of the day, it's actually a claim. It's the same treatment. Or you are paying something on behalf of your employer. That is eventually going to be the claim as well. Okay, right now what do? You issue a normal receipt, right? In the future, you have to change a bit, right? So as stated here, employees are required to request for e-invoice form from supplier to be issued to their employer, which is, remember like my last example just now, yeah, you do a team lunch, you ask for e-invoice, request for e-invoice, right? Give them your company's name. That is going to be the ideal case. But LHDN understand this is going to be very challenging, which is why they allow e-invoice to be issued in the name of the employee, meaning to say you can continue to give the supplier your name. This is accepted. Okay, and you can see there's another line highlighted here, using the existing documents issued by the supplier. And I put a question mark there because it's actually conflicting with some of the other points. This is an added line in the latest one. They especially added this line saying that you can also use the existing documents. But what does it mean by the existing document? Is it like the normal receipts? It is something that we are not clear with. Okay, and it's contradicting with the very first line that you have to request for e-invoice from the supplier. So this is another something that we need to also clarify. There's some uncertainties that are being introduced in the latest guideline. Okay, when you are dealing with foreign suppliers, straightforward. Stated here, foreign suppliers original, you can actually use the foreign suppliers original receipts or invoices. No need to do any self-bill e-invoice, provided that is actually a claim. But if it's directly to the company, it was stated just now, you have to issue self-bill e-invoice. That different case. Okay, now let's quickly talk about transaction involving a payment to a middleman. Right? And this classic example is, I have an agent called Chris, working as a sales agent at Tesla Motors in Berhad, which is a seller, which is the supplier. He's entitled for 10% commission for every single vehicles that he sold. And at one day, he managed to actually sell a 199,000 electric vehicle to Aquila, which is the purchaser. Now we have three parties here, so seller, purchasers, and agent. So how do we actually go about for this case? Steps are very simple. Tesla, being the supplier, issue an e-invoice directly to Aquila. Right, bracket, you see highlighted here, mandatory e-invoice for automotive. Just now we did mention a few industry, you have to issue e-invoice. You cannot say the customer doesn't need it, then you just give normal invoice. No, whatever in that list, you have no choice but to ask for information. You have to issue e-invoice, and which is the example being stated here. So Tesla will just give an e-invoice of 199,000. On another hand, Tesla will continue to issue a self-bill e-invoice to Chris, being the middleman, because Chris is in this case an individual that might not be able to properly issue e-invoice. In that case, you have to assume his role and actually issue the self-bill e-invoice for the commission that he's actually earning. Okay, so that's just two steps for you. So this example is a very good example that covers 3 points. Mandatory e-invoice for automotive industry, self-bill e-invoice, and also how do you handle commission to an agent. Cross-border, okay, so when you're dealing with import or export of goods or services, see, the point already mentioned just now is foreign suppliers are not mandated to implement Malaysia E-Invoice, okay? And they can continue to issue the invoice the usual way, right? Whatever they don't even know what is going on in Malaysia. In this case, as the Malaysia-based buyer, you yourself, you are required to issue a self-billed E-invoice just to prove your expenses. Okay, so that is the case. No more normal receipts. Exported goods and services, the other way around, Malaysian suppliers mandated to implement Malaysia's E-invoice, right? So then local suppliers are supposed to issue E-invoice. Okay, you have to comply with that. But foreign buyers doesn't have a TIN number. That case, you put in a generic TIN number already provided LHDN. Right? That is that straightforward case lah. Also applicable when you're making a foreign income. I don't know, you are getting an employment from overseas, or you are providing some services overseas. So it's considered exported services lah. That one is the same case. Okay, e-commerce. This is a big topic, but we managed to summarize in just one slide. Okay, transactions involving e-commerce platform. Right, we're talking about Shopee, Lazada, not talking about your own e-store. This one I can quickly cover later. E-commerce marketplace like Shopee or Lazada. All right, you can as a platform, not yourself. Right? Most of you are selling on that platform, but you are not Shopee. Shopee are supposed to issue normal receipts to your customers, helping you to do that, which is already the case. But moving forward, when requested, just like the QR code just now, very similar case, there should be a way to request for the e-invoice. Right? If one of your customers requests for that, the system needs to be able to cater for that lah. Okay, this one you can check with Shopee. I think they will definitely have a plan for that lah. Okay, e-commerce platform. Right? Second steps, a lot of steps here. E-commerce platform to issue a self-billed e-invoice to merchant, which is yourself. You are the merchant for the payment received for the goods sold. Okay, so self-billed. Again, as a merchant, you do not have to issue it. Right? All the responsibilities in the latest guideline falls under the platform provider. Again, it's another step for the e-commerce platform. They have to issue e-invoice to you, merchant, for whatever fees that they charge to you. Logistic shipping services, whatever fees, they have to issue e-invoice to you. See, all these three steps are done by the e-commerce platform. Right? I don't think there's anything left for you to do lah. It's just business as usual. All right, so that I think is a good news for anyone selling online. Another point. Okay, so which is what I mentioned just now, merchants are not required to do any e-invoice to the buyer at all. Another point that I want to add in very quickly, what if we get this question all over the time? What if you're running your own online store? Let's say you're selling marks. Let's call it amazingmarks.com, powered by WooCommerce or Shopify or any system. That you can consider yourself just like a retail businesses running point of sale system. That you can consider the same case as a point of sale system. Issue normal receipts. Everything needs to be catered in the system already. You'll need to make sure your WooCommerce, Shopify can actually handle that. When they request for e-invoice, you need to be able to fulfill that. Exactly the same case as retail businesses. So if you're running your own store, totally different case. You have to take on the role already. So that is all for the e-commerce. All right, we are coming to an end of the session. Okay, now I have a few more slides. This is yet another important topic, Peppol network. I think some of you have heard of it. Okay, this is a totally different initiative, not from LHDN, but from MDEC. LHDN's objective is to make sure that you stay compliant with the tax requirements. This thing, driven by MDEC, their objective is mainly helping you to actually streamline your business processes. In other words, digitalization. Okay, so this thing is totally different thing. So one line summary, this Peppol thing is a global standard enabling you or anyone connected to that platform to exchange business documents such as e-invoices between supplier and buyer. Usually it's B2B lah, B2C doesn't matter. You don't even need to actually have that kind of system, right? So it's usually B2C. We're talking about from your receivable sending to the payable side. Okay, in order for you to achieve that, your accounting software vendor needs to be either a Peppol ready solution provider or a Peppol service provider, PRSP or SP lah. Okay, so this is everything that already like dictated by already designed by MDEC, and you can definitely find out more on their website as well. And fortunately, happy to share that we are Bukku enrolled as a PRSP and SP as well. So you can verify this information on MDEC's website. We are already listed there as the PRSP and SP, which is a service provider lah. Okay, so yeah, finally, the one final thing that I want to talk about is what's the impact? The invoice, like I said just now, is final once you created, send over to LHDN. You can no longer change this and that. If you want to change, you have to issue another additional document, which is debit note or credit note or another invoice lah. Okay, you cannot make an adjustment anymore. No more backdating and post-dating. Remember the rules just now for retail businesses. Everything you need to conclude that month in 7 days. So how do you think you can actually post it for 1 year? Unlikely that's going to happen lah. Or even backdate the last year's transaction, 1 whole year. You can't do that. I don't think HDN allows you to actually set a date 1 year before lah. But correct me if I'm wrong. Manually creating invoices using Excel and Word, it's going to be very, very challenging. Not that we are selling software, but this is a fact that right now you have already using Excel and Word, but moving forward, LHDN provide you a free portal for you to do that, to do double work. You do it in Excel and Word, later you go to MyInvoice portal to do it again. Okay, and that is an impact to your operation lah, which is not recommended, right? Which is exactly my point here. And lastly, under the table deals, it's going to be a lot harder. Okay, you don't want to issue e-invoice to another party. Another party might want to request for e-invoice just to prove their income, right? So it's no longer you can actually say it for all. Okay, so that's one of the other points that I would like to highlight lah. Okay, finally, if you don't already know, we from Bukku Accounting, we will actually make sure that you have everything covered. Okay, we have announced that just now we are fully like listed under the MDEC website. We are actively working at looking at the LHDN integration. Although still early days, so you can be sure that we will be supporting you lah. Okay, if you are our subscribers. If you are not our subscriber, don't worry. We have a totally free subscription plan called Launch Plan, which is the only e-invoice software in the market. Okay, aside from MyInvoice portal, you can get a very nice looking invoice integrated with LHDN. Okay, so that is totally free of charge that you guys can explore lah. Okay, so that is all that I have to share for the first part of this webinar session today. We are going to take a short break, about 4 to 5 minutes, and up next we will actually have our esteemed guest, Mr. Ching, joining us for an expert panel. Okay, so get ready. I see a lot of questions coming in. It's very exciting. Both of us will actually are ready to actually answer your questions. Okay, we will be back in a few minutes time. All right, see you.
Aku sebuah buku. Aku sangat excited sebab hari ini aku dapat owner baru. Wah, Papa, I want that book. Owner aku menggunakan aku everyday untuk melukis. Dia very bagus. Oh,
Papa, I love you.
Wah, owner aku very pandai. Oh, dia menggunakan aku macam Albert Einstein.
Papa, you see?
3 Papa wake you 3 times. Papa wake you 3 times.
Owner aku sudah mula nakal. Dia menggunakan aku untuk dapat awet.
Miss Lee.
owner aku sekarang sudah jadi businessman yang successful. Dia guna aku untuk rekod bisnes dan manage account dia.
Bibi, let's go dinner together.
Can't you see I'm busy doing my accounts? If you're hungry, you go eat first lah.
You always never have time for me.
You think run business so easy ah? I need to create invoice, do claims, and manage accounts leh.
Use Bukku lah.
What you think I'm using?
Not that Bukku lah, bodoh. Bukku can auto-generate over 50 accounting and financial reports. You can also upload your receipts and bank statements. It will capture the data automatically for you.
Aku tahu owner aku tak akan abandon aku sebab kita sudah 20 tahun.
Oh yeah, Bibi. LHDN E-Invoicing is coming this year. Luckily, Bukku is the only software in Malaysia we'll be supporting for free.
Wah, aku sedih. Inilah hidup aku sebuah buku. Sekarang aku ada owner baru. Yeay!
Ayah, no.
Aku tak sabar nak digunakan lagi.
Bukku has no hidden charges and provide free weekly online training. Use our promo code RAISIN to try for 3 months now.
History of Milestone. Early years, the company was found in 2002 under the name LT Ching and Associations. Grow and expansions. 15 years later, in 2017, the company changed its name to ST Partners. The following years, Milestone set up a branch office in Setia Alam, Selangor. In 2020, opened another branch office in Johor Bahru. Recent developments. In 2023, Milestone joined Abacus Worldwide, a network of independent accounting firms, ranked 17th Accounting Association in the world by International Accounting Bulletin in their World Survey 2022. We have 3 partners, 3 offices, and 37 staff members. This is our team, led by Mr. Ching and Mr. Wong. We are specialists servicing audit, tax, accounts and advisory, human resources consulting and payroll. Get your consultation today at 012-276-8178.
Hey, you! Are you looking to manage your receipts easily? If yes, then say hi to Bukku. With Bukku, you can say bye-bye to the traditional way of receipt recording. Are you still trying to find for the receipts that you have been stuffing under your pillow, drawer or shoebox? Using Bukku, you can revolutionize the way you record your receipts. Want to know how? Here we go. All you need to do is take a picture of your receipts and bulk upload them into Bukku. Now sit back and relax with a cup of coffee while Bukku does all the work for you. Try Bukku now and it will definitely make your life easier.
Okay, you can come closer a bit. Yeah. So I'm very happy to have our esteemed guest coming to our office today. Welcome back, guys, to our E-Invoice webinar 2.0. And right now we are going into our expert panel. Together with me, Mr. Ching from ST Partners. Okay, so a lot of experience. So definitely my senior, 30 years experience. So yeah, you want to give a very quick intro to everyone?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Jay, for inviting me to attend this, to do the sharing. So we are ST Partners PLT. We are co-founder. I'm a co-founder. So yeah, because this new topic about e-invoicing, so it's quite hot topic now for discussion. Yeah.
I think it has been a while since we last met, right?
Yeah.
So how are you doing? And like, how is the e-invoice going on your side? Like, you getting all the...
Yeah, we getting a lot of inquiry from our clients. So we tell them, don't worry about it. And because if your timeline not yet, you need to require to issue the e-invoice. So just wait for the more up guidelines, more updates, and then you go for it. Okay.
Okay, thanks for that,
Thank you,
Mr.
thank
Ching.
you.
So let's jump into we really have crazy today, a lot of questions. I really don't know how we're gonna finish. I think we're gonna run until 7 p.m. today. Yeah, let's try that. Okay. First question, I'm gonna post it here. Petrol claims. Just now, I think I did mention claims are most likely you have to request for the proof. Okay, so it's going to be from the petrol station. There's actually an example in the guideline that what if you request for e-invoice from a petrol station, they will have to get ready that system lah. So once you have that receipt, that thing can be used for you to actually submit as a claim. Okay, anything to add from there?
No.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. What if the sales commission to staff? This one you can is actually sales commission a salary, part of salary.
Yeah, it's not required to issue the e-invoice.
So it's considered like a salary, part of salary.
Yes,
so
part
if
of
that is the
salary.
case, then yeah, I think one of the points that I mentioned just now, no need for e-invoice lah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Sole proprietor, if asked for a TIN number, of course we'll come up with a owner's name, right? So how to use if the expenses is intended for businesses? I'm trying to understand this question.
So regarding this sole proprietor, because sole proprietor is under the individuals. So you're using your individual's TIN number.
Yeah. As long as I think you are running a business.
Under sole proprietor, yes,
you
can.
You are considered doing business activities lah. So yes, you have to follow everything lah. Basically, just follow everything as what was actually stated just now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you see, we get all these questions all the time, like a very small business, like a contractor coming to your house, that they cannot afford to give you a e-invoice kind of thing. So if the small businesses like a vehicle repair shop or house repair guy, if they do not provide an e-invoice, how to go about it? I'll share my experience so far lah. If you want to, because you are the small business that is actually getting the repair done, and that is your expenses for that small business. So in order to properly claim your expenses, you have to find a way. I don't know whether it can be done if they cannot actually issue invoice, e-invoice, or they refuse to do it. Can we actually do a self-bill just to actually take over the role?
Yes, in my opinion, you can do the self-bill invoice if the seller did not want to give you the e-invoice.
But in that case, we have to request for their TIN number?
Yes.
And what if they don't give?
But what if let's say, because in future, all must have an e-invoice for your claim to claim your tax expenses.
Yeah.
So the better way is you look for the person who can give the e-invoice if you want to claim for tax deduction.
Which is another point I think we highlighted in webinar 1.0 that they might struggle if they cannot afford to do that. So I have no choice but to look for another
Supplier.
contractor.
Yeah, contractor. Yes.
Okay, so I hope we somehow answer that question. It's a very interesting things happening in Malaysia. If the owner of short lot involve 3 individuals, the short lot ran out to A Sdn Bhd. A Sdn Bhd needs to generate self-bill e-invoice, and the supplier detail needs to fill in all 3 owners or 1 only. The short lot belongs to 3 of them. Okay, so the owner is, the landlord is actually 3 individuals lah, and then it's rented to a company, and the company is obviously want to prove their expenses.
Yes, correct.
In this case, so
in my opinion, if it depends on your tenancy agreement. If your tenancy agreement is one of the owners, then you issue under the owner name. If 3 of them, then you issue under 3 of them.
But
it's a very particular.
But since these 3 are, let's say, just individuals not running any businesses, which I think having a property is not considered running business, right?
Yes.
So I think it's going to be self-bill lah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Okay. How Bukku system is going to verify our company's TIN number when signing up, or there's no validation. If no cross validation, I can simply create account and just use other. Oh, okay, this is going to be a bit challenging for a software vendor. Okay, so as much as we can do, we have limited information. The SDK is unfortunately announced already, but not complete. Okay, so far I have yet to come across some way to validate the TIN number, but I think that is the right thing to actually have. If not, then exactly like what you said, right? I can actually fake. Okay, anyone can just take your TIN number and pretend that they are going to be the company. So I think we do not have a direct answer today, but I think this is something that we can seek for clarification as we get more information from LHDN and as they actually furnish us with more information about the SDK. Hopefully it's coming soon, but I just heard from Ching that he was getting some insights that SDK is the not complete one. The complete one is going to coming in
July, August.
Which is I don't know how things is going to work out because August things are going live already. So I hope that's wrong information.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. How to register e-certificate and e-signature? You see, I didn't talk about e-certificate and signature. So that's not something that you should worry about. You see, even I don't talk about the TIN number. So the TIN number is already given, but this e-certificate and signature most likely is needed when you are trying to connect your TIN number with any third-party system, because there should be some kind of validation for a third-party system to assume or actually on behalf of you actually issue an invoice. So I don't have a direct answer for you, unfortunately, for this one. Okay. Bukku accounting software will be able to register member for Peppol network access point. Very specific question. Answer is yes. Okay. I don't know if anyone else can actually understand this, but short answer is yes. We will be connecting to Peppol. So meaning to say, in the future, you will be able to, as a supplier, create an invoice, and that invoice can be actually forwarded to anyone using any accounting software in Malaysia, or eventually it can be out of Malaysia, but that's not happening so soon. Okay. I am using electronic medical records. How can Bukku integrate my patient's record with E-Invoicing? Sorry, still Bukku.
Okay, still Bukku.
I believe you have some sort of a patient management system. Okay, so that needs to be integrated with accounting software. Otherwise, there will be some manual works required. It's just like retail businesses that having a point system integrated with Bukku or not integrated with Bukku, that will make a lot of difference. But I think you can check with your vendor first, right? Because most of the system, they have a front end like issuing the so-called the transcript, the receipts. Okay, so that part is essentially also by right it should be able to convert into an e-invoice. But again, I'm not so familiar with the industry, so that's the best I can actually share with you. Foreign worker. Is it considered like a full-time worker, technically speaking?
No, if your foreign worker is under your employment, you have got a working work permit. So it's your employees, your employees. So you need to have a self-bill invoice.
It's usually go through the pay slip.
Pay slip.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Will there be charges for e-invoicing? Not happening for us, but other vendors you can check. When e-invoicing is implemented, how do we invoice disbursement to customer to recover the money paid on behalf? There is a part actually stating that, which is actually excluded. I think you can refer to the e-invoicing, e-invoice specific guideline. There is a part talking about the disbursement and reimbursement. If I can recall, whatever issued with e-invoice already, between three parties usually, okay, whatever issued already, you do not have to issue again. So it's going to be between three of you. You go and sort out the payments, like who is making the payment. As long as you have E-Invoice issued, the subsequent E-Invoice, let's say you have a upstream supplier supplying you light bulbs, and they already issue you an E-Invoice. So subsequently, you do not need to include that, right? If the end of the day is the end business paying for that, right? So that is quick sharing. Okay, I'll try to avoid the Bukku part. There's a lot.
Okay.
If I am a person who needs to use E-Invoice at the first stage, but the accounting software haven't implemented the features, so I need to key in to the MyInvoice portal one by one. I think yes. But that shouldn't be the case lah. You have to chase your vendor to actually make that happen as soon as possible. Not one by one. MyInvoice portal, they actually stated that there is a way to bulk upload Excel file. Up to how many invoices, I do not know lah. But I think 10, 100 should be no problem. No need to upload one by one. But you have to get ready with an Excel file. Okay. How about construction accounting, whereby there are many items to include in the E-Invoice retention sum? Are you familiar with construction, right? How is the invoice going to look like?
Okay, for construction accounting, because you need to recognize the revenue, including the retention sum also. So it should be appear in your E-Invoice, the total sum claimed to date, and less the retention sum, and what is the amount claimed to date. It should be that way.
Okay. How about loan interest from bank statement? Meaning to say, I think he's referring to interest charged by bank.
Yes.
I think I read somewhere, just now there was a place stating that you might need to issue self-bill E-invoice, but I also saw somewhere that the bank is going to actually get ready with some way to actually generate E-invoice for you. Which is also the case last time, right? GST time, if you can recall, is still there. Public bank, if I can recall, there's a GST statement or somehow. So they are likely to come up with some ways for you to actually do that. Okay, I think more information will be given later. Can you explain more details? How is the function for API? I try not to bore you for that, but API is essentially a way to connect between softwares. So it's between accounting software and LHDN. They have their software. So we connect and then we will submit the documents on behalf of you. Alternative for that would be MyInvoice portal, which you are given a hopefully nice looking interface to actually submit your invoice. But then that is what I stated just now, double work, double job. Okay. This one?
Yes. Currently, we follow the normal provisions. So it's 200 to 220,000 or 6 months in prison or both, if not complies. But I don't think LHDN will impose the penalty now because it's just started.
Yeah, they're going to.
This should be helping the taxpayer to familiarize with the system instead of penalize. I think they should. I think there will be more education workshop to educate the taxpayer on this.
How long do you think they will come in and start?
I think now they have along the way they already have a lot of workshop to guide the taxpayer. I think at the moment it's all those MNC big companies they will do hand in hand with them. So I think for smaller company SME, I think toward the end of this year, maybe they will have one more workshop for us.
Okay. Okay. For e-commerce doing sales in Shopee, do we record platform merchant fees in our Bukku individual sales invoice per transaction? This one I think we can take it separately. Usually it's a consolidated one, not the E-invoice consolidated one. But again, as a Shopee seller, you do not have to worry so much about the E-invoice part. It's more on how Shopee can integrate with Bukku or the other way around. So we have an upcoming integration to be announced. So yes, you can stay tuned for that. Okay. If I issue an e-invoice to customer charges, then service and include the out-of-pocket expenses, mileage, tolls, hotels, outstation allowances. Shall I issue self-bill due to this for the staff claim? If I issue, I'm trying to reissue back this question. These are all the out-of-pocket expenses. Okay, out-of-pocket means it's a claim. Is it a claim?
It's a claim for staff, is it?
So if it's a claim, then yes, no, not self-bill, right? I think it's just you have to prove that. Okay, if you have all these receipts, I don't think you can issue self-bill as a personal. That is my take on it lah. But there should be some alternative lah, like whether you can actually be allowed to use the existing.
Okay, maybe let me make clearer lah. If this is a staff want to claim for companies, want to claim lah. It's a staff want to claim for a company expenses. So either one he can ask the merchant to issue the e-invoice under the company name.
True.
Or if not, if impossible, then issue under the staff name, or use the latest guideline. They can use the original normal bill for this merchant. But this is I think for the initial stage this I think this one is a conflict with the other guideline, is it? The other provisions.
Yes.
So maybe because not all the business is fully implemented e-invoice, this third maybe can be used. Okay.
Yep.
So this is my opinions.
Okay. Yeah. If I'm an individual taxpayer who rented out my office unit, do I need to issue e-invoice to the tenant who runs a business? Self-bill e-invoice.
No, I think.
Right?
This is self-bill invoice.
Yeah,
the
self-bill.
businesses want to claim the tax deductions.
Yes. Self-bill most likely self-bill.
Because you individual, you are not doing business, you do need to issue the e-invoice.
So this is the self-bill. Okay. Oh, there's a lot of questions around the foreign workers. Normally we look for Bangla, Indonesian to repair offices, minor wood repair. So I don't think they know what's going on, right? I mean, all the foreign workers. So, and whether they are registered or not is another question.
Another question, yeah.
So we cannot engage them anymore. I think that, I don't know, this is a positive things for the government or not. So they can get away for all this unregistered. Yes, because if you want to properly claim or prove your expenses, you can no longer deal with these guys anymore. That's my opinion lah. So you might have to look for the proper one, or I think they will just come up with some, I don't know, collaboration between Bangla and local people, and then the local people will be like issuing from their under their name lah. Okay, so I don't know, that could be happening. Okay, if we need to pay 20 rooms commission to a same agent, we can issue one self-bill invoice or need to issue 20 self-bill invoices. To the same agent, I think it can be consolidated into one.
Yes.
It's just like how you issue invoice now. If you issue 20 invoices, then it's 20 e-invoice. If you can combine, if it's possible to combine, because you're dealing with the same guy and you stated clearly that you're renting 20 rooms or whatnot, then I think you can consolidate. But that is not the consolidated e-invoice. What I meant is you combine everything into that one self-bill e-invoice. Okay. For a hawker who choose to use consolidated e-invoice, then suddenly a customer asks for e-invoice, what can be done? You need a system. You might need a point of sale system that can print out the proper receipt with a QR code. Yes. So you cannot handwriting anymore. I don't think there's a way to handwrite, they do manual anymore, right? If they want to do all this to stay in compliance with this. Yeah, so I think that should be the answer lah. You need to get a proper system, or I don't know, find some free software that potentially can actually help you with that. Try Bukku launch, so perhaps it can actually help you lah. Yeah. So okay, what information is in the QR? It's just going to be like a random string for the system to validate. It's meaningless. You can't read it. You can't read. You can scan and you can use some kind of translator. It will show you some random symbols or numbers or characters lah. Okay. Can we submit our invoices via API by batches? Depending on your software. If your software allows that, most likely yes lah, because even MyInvoice portal, they can do batch. So most likely they have a way for the software vendor to actually submit in batch. Okay. All the individuals also need to learn how to use MyInvoice portal so that we can prove where our income is from. Have you received any information on this? Like individuals, yes, they have to request for E-Invoice on the spot. Let's say I buy mobile phones, that I can actually get some rebate lah. Then let's say you're selling mobile phone, I will request the E-Invoice from you. So, but do I need to use MyInvoice portal in that case?
This one I'm not sure. What's
they are saying that individual,
portal.
you're not running any businesses. Do you need to actually get involved with the invoice portal?
No.
Yeah.
If you're not doing business, you buy goods from the merchant.
Yeah.
So you ask the merchant to issue the e-invoice to you if you want to claim for tax relief. For example, let's say in future you want to claim for tax relief in your personal relief.
That should be a physical. There should be a physical copy lah, or recorded in LHDN system.
Yes.
As long as they issue you an e-invoice, that whether they give you the so-called physical receipts, it doesn't matter anymore, because if they are able to prove that is a valid e-invoice, that is memang in the LHDN system already.
You can claim the relief automatically.
So technically speaking, LHDN is aware that you actually spend that much lah. Okay. Again, foreign workers, yes. For self-bill e-invoice for foreign purchase, in the e-invoice needs to specify by items or can consolidate all in one. Not stated, so you can do whatever you want. Okay, you're buying something, you state as clear as possible lah. Okay, you buy how many items or what. So you can continue to do the same thing. Although there are classification, not sure if you already came across, there are certain classification codes, like what kind of items that you're buying. So you might want to refer to that. Also, we don't bother sharing, it's like too much for you to take in now. So like let's say you're buying different things, different reasons, depending on how, if everything is falling under the same reason, yes, you can consolidate that into one, but let's say it's different reasons. Moving forward, you refer to the classification code. It's a 3-digit code that is actually on the SDK website. You go and search lah. Okay, so if they are all same code, you can consolidate into one. Otherwise, you have to break it down, following the guideline. Okay. By implementing e-invoice, meaning that all the invoice template is standard. Like the logo is no longer changing the logo lah. Is no longer allowed. I'm not sure if you're referring to the MyInvoice portal, because if you do not have any software, MyInvoice portal is going to help you to issue an e-invoice. And just now you saw a sample consolidated invoice. That is perhaps the look and feel. That is the bare minimum lah. I don't know how advanced they're going to make that system work, but I think the fundamental things that they want you to actually be able to achieve is being able to validate, to submit. Okay, whether the look and feel is important to them or not, this one I can't say on their behalf lah. But I think you need, if you're particular with look and feel, you need to use a third-party software. Okay. If the hawker didn't register, can they still do business?
At the moment, they still can do, but after 1st July 2025, I think you need to register.
What
if you do want to register? So when you want to buy something, how to prove your cash.
You mean people buy from you or?
Wait, no. Let's say you want to buy house or want to buy car.
Mm.
They want definitely industry need to issue a e-invoice to you, It's no So the tax authority will definitely know you have buying this one. Then you do not have reported your income.
Yeah. So I think the answer from Ching is not recommended lah. You
Yes,
better
you should
do it
better
lah. Although
register lah.
they can still continue to do that, right?
Yes.
So, but not recommended. So it's going to give you more trouble than before lah.
Yes.
Can I do self-bill and consolidated in Bukku? Yes. Not now, future. Okay. All cash sales kind of business can choose to do consolidated. So cash sales, let's say I'm selling to business. So yes, it's still cash sales, but the business will require e-invoice. So I think my opinion is that doesn't matter cash sales on cash on credit,
cash.
But it's like who you're dealing with.
Yes.
If you are like dealing with anyone like just buying
General
something,
public.
then no need lah until they
The buyer request
for that. Okay. May I know for restaurant how to prepare for e-invoice and submit? I think restaurant you have a point of sale system. Your point of sale system should have the QR thing that we talk about just now. You can convert, and at the end of the month, the point of sale system again should be able to help you to submit the consolidated one. Okay, you can check with your vendor lah. Okay. Yoga center, well, very specific. I got this yoga center need to issue e-invoice. So I think answer is yes lah.
Yes.
It's not listed that,
In the exemption.
exempted. Like I say, it's everyone. So the answer is yes lah. If this is also this something that involve an agent in between. If I sold off a shop lot, so the buyer go through agent lah. So it's an agent from buyer side. Is the owner have to issue a self-bill e-invoice to actually buyer or agent? Owner. This is tricky. This one involve more parties.
Because it's whether you are doing business or not, this one.
Yeah, not stated.
Not stated.
Not stated. So if no one is doing business here, it's like buyer is individual,
seller is
individual. Then who is going to do? No one can actually take the role.
Yes.
Yeah, this one I think we can call LHDN and ask.
To verify lah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we don't have answer now.
Yes.
So unless you can state like whether it's a business or not lah. Yeah. Okay. I have a lot more questions, but yes, the older one, unfortunately, there's too many questions coming in. The older one is already out of our radar, so sorry for that. The system doesn't support that much of comments at the same time. Okay, if you didn't get your question answered, you can paste it in again. Okay, we'll try to actually tackle that. Okay. Any demo video to generate e-invoice in any system? We have yet to see MyInvoice portal is not released yet. Even Bukku is also not ready for the integration. Their server is not ready, so nothing much we can do. Okay, you might have to wait towards the end of. I mean, when the date is actually closer to August lah. Okay, we will make announcement accordingly. When we issue consolidated e-invoice, should we still fill in the buyer's individual TIN number, my card number for every single receipt?
No.
I got a bit confused here because at the end he or she mentioned normal receipts.
Issue the consolidated e-invoice.
Okay.
No need lah.
No need.
Yes,
because
that's general
consolidated is going addressed to like a bit like cash sales that people are doing now. They have a term lah, general public.
Yes, the TIN number for general public from the guide.
Yes. Okay. How to post? Okay, let's check out this. How to post some sales and purchase invoices in real time. Export businesses receive invoice in March, but now it's actually February. What do you mean? Huh? Invoice dated 22nd February must be posted on. Okay, so he's asking about the post-dating, backdating thing lah. Okay, I read from somewhere that there will be limitation like up to 3 days. You can backdate because they actually stated the system are supposed to be 24 hours online. But in case anything, they say you still have up to 3 days. I heard somewhere, I saw somewhere. So I think backdating, if it's allowed, definitely you are limited. You can't go beyond a few days. Okay, so not like a lot of people are doing, okay, I issue one whole year invoice for my tenant. Okay, so
that's history already.
History, that's going to be history lah, unfortunately. Yeah. If I have multiple companies, do I use one Bukku system for one company or based on our model? So one company, one subscription lah. Okay. Of course, some of the companies you can use the free one, so there's no additional charges to you. Okay. Let's see. We have more questions are popping in. How about home owner selling used items to individual? So it's the same case. They're not selling to businesses. They're selling
individual to individual.
So it's C2C lah, consumer to consumer. So not stated, right?
Not stated
because
in
the guidelines stated B2B, B2G, which is
B2C.
not B2C, but never mentioned C2C. So
Yes.
I think in that case, you don't have to do anything yet lah. But if you kena someone, don't look for me. You better ask. You go and ask because I don't have an answer here. 72 hours based on the date invoice, based on the invoice date or the date sending to IRB sending, or more precisely the validation. Right? If they are coming back in 2 minutes later, that should be the time lah. They will tell you the time that is actually validated. Okay, so that should be that. I am in a F&B industry. Okay, if let's say staff was overcharged customer. Okay, which is quite common lah via credit card. Hence, we need to actually do a refund to a customer via a credit card merchant. How should I report to IRB? Just now we have 4 transaction types that you can submit to LHDN. Let's say the invoice by right it should be 100. You actually wrongly made it 150. You can follow up with a refund note. Okay, 50 ringgit refund note. Okay, so that should be the case because payment has already been done. Okay, good afternoon. If my company is a law firm, Bukku can work on it or not. All about legal fees. So this is more related to the software side. So I'll just quickly mention. Yes, we have law firms using us, but more details you can check with us lah, because requirements varies from people to people. So you can check with our team and see how we can support you lah. Okay. With restaurant business point of sale system should have a setting for E-Invoice. Should be. You need to check with your vendor lah. For import, how do we do a self-bill invoice in our system if we already record a supplier invoice? Okay, not sure what do you mean by already, because moving forward, talking about past transaction, I think that is gone already. But from the day that is actually implemented, you have an import. Then when you record the supplier invoice, so there should be an option in the system asking whether you want this to be submitted as a self-bill E-invoice or not. So that is based on our study so far lah. Okay, we have started looking at the specification. So based on our study, that's how we are going to go about for that case that you mentioned just now. Okay, any specific guidelines on different industry like development and construction? Yes, they have FAQ. You can go and search for E-Invoice, LHDN E-Invoice, just Google search and go to their landing page. There is a list of FAQ, but very limited industry. I've seen like clinics, I've seen some other industry. You can check it out lah.
Yes, I think there's a specific guideline for construction industry.
Oh, there is.
There is, yes. There
Okay,
is.
so yes, you can actually check it out lah. to prove a sales or revenue, a supplier needs to issue an e-invoice to buyer. Yes, so to prove expenses, we need to request for e-invoice only. No need to issue any or key in anything. It's going to be the same. Last time you request for a normal invoice, now you request for e-invoice. And eventually you key into your system. But let's say it's Peppol connected software, you can expect the e-invoice to actually go into your system automatically. So these are the options. Are you familiar with the K1, the custom import thing?
The question is, so for
foreign
purchase issue, sale bill, invoice need to specify, yes. You need to spend a number in the specific column. I think they have a one.
Yeah. You need to
yes.
mention all the whatever permits or whatever forms number there.
Yes, yes.
Money changes. Should have issue e-invoice, or I just depend on whether. Everything is following the turnover. Yes. If you are already revenue more than 25, is starting next year, January 1st. So you just refer to that. Will there be any playback? Yes, we will share. All these are going live on YouTube and Facebook. So these are all recorded. Then you can all refer back to the video, and we also share the slides to everyone after this. What about freelancers who are providing services to business? Will there be self-built, or the freelancer need to register as a? Oh, this is also a question I have.
Yeah.
So I think either one works, right? I can register myself, then I'm no longer a freelancer.
Yes.
Or if I continue to be a freelancer, but I provide some kind of services, I can't be issuing invoice.
So the business owner will issue the self-bill invoice. Yes.
So what's the pros and cons? Let's say I'm about to decide whether I should actually register or I don't register.
Okay, let's say if you are going to, let's say in the practical way, say you are doing business. Let's say you are freelancer, you are not doing for one company, you got few companies. So you incur traveling expenses, you got entertainment. So if you register as a business, then you can claim this business expenses.
Okay, so it's coming back to the tax.
Tax, yes.
Yeah, how much you're earning, and
then
which
how much
one is more
expenses
worth it
yes, correct.
Okay.
Depending.
All this you can consult the proper accountants like Mr. Ching. So other than e-invoicing, is it possible for us to use our own invoice format with a company logo? Again, this is like exactly following your existing software. Do not have to worry about this part. So let's say continue to use existing software. Whatever that you can do, you can continue to do it. Unless you're talking about getting a new software, then you need to check with your vendor. Okay. For tax relief, we have yet to decide to the relief to be claimed under husband or wife. Can I request for invoice without stating a person's name?
For tax 2024, it means I can't understand the questions. So whether if you, let's say, okay, I give me an example. Let's say for you want to buy the mobile phone, to claim the relief. So if when you request the merchant to issue the e-invoice, you must give him or her the TIN number. You must give straight away. Otherwise, you can't get the e-invoice for your claim. So, in my opinion, you must decide within 1 month, because after 1 month, you no longer can request for the e-invoice already.
Okay. Yes. When you submit, you have to actually decide already.
Yes.
Okay. So we are actually running a bit out of time. So sorry. I think we should by 15 minutes already. So we'll take a few more questions. So yes, let's see. Company making monthly contribution to company's sports club registered under RS. do we need to do a self-bill, or the sports clubs can actually issue e-invoice for the monthly contribution? In my opinion, I think RS is also falling under, the entity registered under RS, you need to register. You have to issue e-invoice also.
Yes.
Meaning to say the sports clubs needs to issue e-invoice on whatever spend that or contribution that you are doing lah. So that is my.
Yes. Same happening with you lah.
Okay. Okay. We'll take 2 more questions. Okay. So we are phase 1 to live. Okay. Congrats. So you're making a lot of money. Do we need to issue e-invoice or normal invoice for those companies not implemented? Following the guideline, it's depending on the supplier. You are the supplier. You are making business. So if you are, let's say, after August, I think you have to issue e-invoice.
Yes.
Regardless. Yeah. Whether they need it or not doesn't matter, because for them it's just yet another invoice with an additional QR, and how they want to do it is up to them. Okay, they do not need that, but you give them anyway, so yeah, they can just take it lah. Okay, one final question. I'll try to pick something a bit different lah. How about gaming business? May I clarify if the gaming business is required to do e-invoice for their subscriber who are not individuals or taxpayer? Gaming
is under specific. They need to issue the e-invoice. I think one of the areas industry, there's no consolidated invoice.
Yeah.
So, the example, it depends on who want to claim the expenses or not. If not, then you can put under your kids. I think the names.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that.
Okay.
So I think that is it for our expert panel today. All right.
Thank you.
A bit overshoot. Apologies for that. So again, really
Thank you.
thankful for Mr. Ching to make all the way coming to our office to actually make this happen. Really appreciate. I hope we can do more in the future.
Yeah.
So again, thanks all, like more than close to 1,000 of you attending our webinar today. I hope you actually learned something. And if not, if you still need support, you can contact LHDN. You can try contacting us if you are already our subscribers, or you can try to look for some professional accountants. So they are fairly knowledgeable. I think we have to actually be knowledgeable with all this because it's really coming. Okay, so these are the things that you can do. So with that, I conclude our session today. And again, thank you so much.
Okay,
and
thank you.
I hope we can actually do more sharing sessions in the future. Okay, thanks everyone, and I'll see you guys in the near future. All right, see you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.